Chapter 478 Who isn't kind-hearted? Tai nodded at Hua Yuao and said, "You are the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress companion, and that means you will always be the Extreme North's friend. If ever you need our help in the future, don't hesitate to send someone here to give us instructions." He bent down as he spoke, and passed his palm face up in front of Hua Yuao. He was in human form, but he was still a lot more muscular than Hua Yuao was. There was an icy blue snowflake on his broad palm, which seemed like it was made from ice and snow. However, Hua Yuao realized to his surprise when he took it that the snowflake was actually lukewarm, but he could clearly feel that the terrifying aura of ultimate ice contained within it. This is the Snow Empress writ, and it's personally given by the Snow Empress. If you need anything in the future, just send someone to the Extreme North with that Snow Empress writ, and we will follow any instruction or request you have. Thank you. Hua Yuao didn't decline his offer, and he put the Snow Empress writ in his storage soul tool. The Extreme North's strength was very formidable. Furthermore, the Extreme North bordered both the Heavenly Soul and the Doling Empire's northern territories. Perhaps you would actually need their help in the future. The Titan Snow Devil King stood up straight. We have completed our task, and we shall take our leave. Please send my regards to the Snow Empress. Tai. Blue light glowed as the Snow Empress glimmered beside Hua Yuao. The Snow Devil King hurriedly bowed to greet her as she appeared, and the Ice Bear King made his posture a little more glamorous. The Snow Empress stared at the Snow Devil King seriously and said, "I'll leave the Extreme North to you. Tai, I'll give you this. With this, you will be able to survive one more breakthrough." The Snow Empress waved her hand as she spoke, and a ray of blue light flew towards the Snow Devil King. The Snow Devil King caught it subconsciously, and his eyes changed drastically in the next moment. He knelt down in front of the Snow Emperor with a kerplunk, and his eyes were covered with mist. "Thank you, Snow Empress. I will forever remember your favor of lengthening my life." He kowtowed 3 times at the Snow Empress respectfully before he got back on his feet and strode away with his tribe of Titan Snow Devils. Hua Yuao naturally knew what the Snow Empress had given him, but he had no intention of stopping her. He knew that the Snow Empress was helping him establish camaraderie. His connection with the Extreme North would be seamlessly intimate with this relationship. The Ice Bear King sighed at the Titan Snow Devil King enviously and grunted as he muttered under his breath, "What are you so happy about? I'll have my own in the future." The Snow Empress glanced back at him and said, "You shall follow you for now. Take these few days to treat your wounds, and we will depart when you're better." The second part of her sentence was targeted at Hua Yuao, and she disappeared into his body after that. The Ice Bear King nodded obediently as his plump frame plopped back down onto the snow. The snow's temperature was so low that normal people would lose their lives lying down on such a surface, but the Ice Bear King seemed like he was enjoying himself. Hua Yuao turned around and gazed at the Sun Moon Empire's camp in the distance, and a faint smile gradually appeared on his face. "I was defeated the last time around, Zhu Zi, but I have pulled one back this time. I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you, and leave this place as quickly as possible." He wasn't worried that the lesson he had given her wasn't sufficient. So many bases and structures had been destroyed, and no matter how reluctant Zhu Zi was, she couldn't reconstruct everything and continue excavating within such a short period of time. In the end, it wasn't easy for her to transport all those structural installations in the first place. The cost of excavation was also exorbitant, and she probably couldn't put the same batch together within 2 months. Hua Yuao did consider taking some of those rare metals back, but this place was so cold, and doing so would be a terribly difficult task. His individual strength was limited after all. He also considered asking the Titan Snow Devils to help, but the Titan Snow Devil King was only here because of the Snow Empress favor, and he couldn't just command the new ruler of the Extreme North. He gave up thought to this endeavor. After this lesson, the Sun Moon Empire would have to think long and hard if they wanted to try to excavate the rare metals here again. Hua Yuao could do a lot more during this period of time, and he would have time to relay this information to the Academy. The Academy would contact the Heavenly Soul and Doling Empires, and they were bound to do something. Hua Yuao told the Ice Bear King to continue treating his wounds here while he snuck back towards the Sun Moon Empire's camp to scout it out. Hua Yuao had a lot less trouble without the aerial surveillance soul tools. He didn't have to worry about anything at all with his concealment abilities. Hua Yuao gazed down from a distance, and he could how wretched the Sun Moon Empire's camp was. The sky was already bright by now, and the Sun Moon Empire's army was clearly hard at work. They were collecting and salvaging their broken and damaged machines, and they seemed like they were taking apart their camp at the same time. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Hua Yuao's mouth. Are they finally going to leave? Damaged machines weren't the most painful losses, as machines could be replenished and repaired. However, many of their tents had been destroyed, and that meant many soldiers no longer had shelter or a place to rest. That was fatal in a chilly place like the Extreme North. Since Zhu Zi could command her soldiers with strict obedience, then she had to have a relatively good reputation and prestige within her army, so she couldn't just disregard these soldiers. Furthermore, she still had to consider that he would notify the Doling Empire. Retreating was her only choice under such circumstances. As for those minerals and whatnot that the army had already excavated, he would just let them take them away. He could no longer do anything to stop them. After all, they hadn't managed to excavate much. Indeed, after a morning of readjustment, the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion put away many of their damaged or destroyed soul tools. They were damaged, but the rare metals inside them were still very precious. They could still use those rare metals after repairing or recycling them, so they couldn't just waste those soul tools. Midday passed, and the army had their meals before they moved out and proceeded towards the south, back into the Heavenly Soul Empire's territory. The Fire Phoenix Legion was positioned at the rear. Hua Yuao watched them slowly leave, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of loss and lament in his heart. He was finally standing on opposite sides from Zhu Zi in the end. How could he face her again in the future under such circumstances? Hey, I hope we don't meet again on the battlefield. But since she's one of the Sun Moon Empire's marshals, can we really avoid meeting each other on the battlefield again? Hua Yuao was still doubtful in his mind when he suddenly noticed that a sphere of red light emerged in the barren army camp. The fiery red light was flickering very faintly, but it was very glaring amidst the white and snowy ground. Hey! Hua Yuao was too far away, so he couldn't see clearly even with his spirit eyes and purple demon eyes. He had to activate his Eye of Destiny as he swept across to that area. He quickly discovered that someone was standing in the snow, and this red light came from her body. Wasn't that Zhu Zi? In this moment, Zhu Zi's pretty pale face flowed with grief and dismal beauty, and she was staring in his direction. She's waiting for me. She guessed that I would come here to scout. Hua Yuao felt his heart quiver as he heaved a sigh, and he finally flew in Zhu Zi's direction. Zhu Zi could see him flying towards her from some distance away, and the sadness in her expression gradually receded. A slight smile appeared on her lips, and she thought to herself that her archenemy did have a conscience after all. Hua Yuao drifted to the ground about 5 meters away from Zhu Zi. They stared into each other's eyes, and their expressions were both deep and complicated. "You've won, this time." Zhu Zi grunted softly. She was evidently a little upset. Hua Yuao heaved a sigh and said, "Actually, I don't want to win. If only we weren't standing on opposite sides. Then stand over on my side." Zhu Zi retorted furiously, "If you come to me, we will no longer be standing on opposite sides." "No?" Hua Yuao grew silent. He paused for a moment before he said slowly, "We have our own wishes and creeds. I know that if you insist on continuing down this path, you cannot convince me. Can't you see that I haven't attempted to convince you? Aren't you afraid that I've prepared a trap here?" Zhu Zi suddenly said coldly, "Have you forgotten what I said to you that day? Your heart is too soft. There's a saying that the compassionate cannot hold military authority. If I had been in your shoes last night, I would have unleashed a massacre when I had the absolute advantage. I would have done as much as I could to weaken my enemy's strength, and best if I could do away with myself, the mastermind. That would have been the only way to get something done once and for all. But you didn't do so, and you still dare to come see me at such a close distance. Aren't you afraid that I have prepared another ambush? You can't have the same luck to avoid capture every time, and when I'm prepared, it's impossible for you to capture me. At least, you can't do so within a short period of time." Hua Yuao laughed coolly, "But I have never considered you as my enemy." Hua Yuao's simple sentence dissolved Zhu Zi's fierce expression, and she just stared at him blankly. "I have never considered you as my enemy." This was such a simple sentence, but it flicked at Zhu Zi's heartstrings forcefully. The fury on her face disappeared, and a plain smile took its place. She heaved a faint sigh as she muttered to herself, "You live up to your name as the man that I have chosen. No matter how foolish you are still foolishly cute. But we can only be opponents in the end. You've won this time, but you may not the next time. I hope that we will cross paths again as late as possible because I truly don't want you as my opponent. That's not because you are hard to deal with, but because I can't bring myself to do anything to you. You may leave." Hua Yuao stared at her quietly and said, "Can this really not be changed, Zhu Zi?" Zhu Zi shook her head and answered, "No." Hua Yuao no longer tried to advise her. He knew that she had made up her mind a long time ago, and he only asked his question was because he was still hanging on to a fine thread of hope. Zhu Zi looked up into the sky and muttered to herself, "Perhaps I will give you a present the next time we meet, but I can't give that to you." "Hey!" Hua Yuao stared at her suspiciously. He didn't understand what she was talking about. "Why aren't you leaving?" Juzi asked again furiously. Huoyuan shook his head gently and said, farewell. If we meet again, I wish that we won't have to be enemies. I truly hope that you will still be my senior that I studied with back then, and the same senior who helped treat my injuries. I'm leaving, Juzi, and you must take care of yourself. If the day comes that we finally don't have to fight to the death on the battlefield, I will try my best to protect you and fulfill your wishes. Huoyuan stared at her deeply before he rose into the sky and flew far into the distance. Juzi stomped her foot heavily as he watched him disappear over the horizon. Ah, she began to shout indignantly, and her entire being seemed to descend into hysteria. She managed to calm herself down after a moment as she said angrily, Juzi, you say that his heart is soft, but isn't yours as well? Why can't you do anything to him? You know very well that he's possibly the hardest enemy to deal with, and you should kill him. You will no longer have any worries if he is dead, and you will be able to do what you want with nothing in your way. She was still talking to herself when circles of fiery red figures gradually appeared 100 meters around her. Four enormous soul tools slowly rose as a red shadow swiftly came to Juzi's side. It was the Fire Phoenix Duo, Luan Feng. Why didn't you give you the order, Commander? Luan Feng frowned as she asked Juzi. Juzi turned towards her, and her eyes slowly turned moist as she suddenly plunged into Luan Feng's arms and sobbed uncontrollably. Luan Feng was momentarily stunned, and then she suddenly understood something as she heaved a faint sigh and hugged Juzi as she shook her head exasperatedly. Huoyuan was still hovering in midair in the distance as he watched everything that was happening on the ground, and a forced smile appeared on his face. Juzi, did you know that I would rather you have given the order to make a move against me? If that were the case, perhaps I would have been able to harden my heart to deal with you in the future, but because of your softness, my heart cannot be hardened to do anything to you. Juzi was so scheming. How could he be tricked once again? How could he not have considered that she could have arranged an ambush? Only his spiritual form was there instead of his original body, and if Juzi did give the order to attack him, his spiritual form had many ways to escape. Huoyuan was a lot more careful because of the mistake that he had made previously, but Juzi didn't make a move, and he couldn't say anything heartless either. They had clashed and sparks flew, but everything had finally dissolved into a heartbreaking farewell. Juzi was angry with herself, but wasn't Huoyuan also hating himself for having a soft heart? Juzi left, and she took her trusted subjects with her. The extreme north grew calm once more, and all that was left were the marks of excavation. Huoyuan returned to where the Ice Bear King was resting, and he sat down beside him with his legs crossed as he started to meditate. He quickly calmed himself down as he took this opportunity to cultivate in the extreme north's bitter cold. 3 days quickly passed, and the Ice Bear King's wounds were fully stabilized. Huoyuan finally returned to his journey with the Ice Bear King once more, and they went straight for Dragon City. He still had to rendezvous with Nankyukai, who was waiting for him there. Dragon City wasn't affected by the Sun Moon Empire at all, and everything was as it was before, but the city was still being penetrated by soul tools and technology. The Sun Moon Empire's soul tools were still snaking their way through the Heavenly Soul Empire's aristocrats and citizens' way of life. Huoyuan took the Ice Bear King, who was in human form, back to the cloth store. Nankyukai was already very worried from waiting, and she was immediately overjoyed when he returned. You still know to come back. You've been gone for so many days, but you didn't send a message at all. Nankyukai planted her hands on her waist as she shouted angrily at Huoyuan. Huoyuan placed his index finger on his lips as he lowered his voice and explained, I was in the extreme north over the past few days, so how could I have sent a message back to you? There's someone else here. Calm down. Only now did Nankyukai realize that a round fellow had followed Huoyuan inside. This person's waist, head, and torso were all circular, and his egg-like tummy entered the courtyard first before she saw his fat face, which was all smiles. Who's this? Nankyukai asked suspiciously. The Ice Bear King didn't wait for Huoyuan to introduce him, and he took a few quick steps forward as he said to Nankyukai respectfully, You must be grandmother. Greetings, grandmother. I am little Bai. Grandmother. Nankyukai stared at him with slack jaws and widened eyes. Huoyuan felt his eyes go black, and he couldn't help but slap the Ice Bear King on the head. She's not your grandmother. Don't spout nonsense. The Ice Bear King withdrew his head like a turtle and said aggrievedly, Grandfather, this lady is quite pretty, so I thought she was my grandmother. So, she's not. Nankyukai stared at little Bai's enormous torso before she turned towards Huoyuan and said, Wait, what is happening? Exactly. You have to explain this to me. You've been gone for half a month, and you bring back a fat grandson back with you. Huoyuan answered with a forced smile. He's my distant relative, and I am his senior. He could only explain everything like that. Otherwise, Nankyukai would probably hammer him with a lot more questions with that immensely curious personality of hers. Distant relative? Nankyukai glanced at little Bai a few times suspiciously. She felt that this fatty wasn't simple at all. Huoyuan lowered his voice and said, Kyukaiu, I ran into quite a big problem this time. I managed to figure out what the army was here for. They were here to excavate rare metals at the extreme north borders, and they have already discovered where the veins of rare metals are. They have retreated, but I cannot guarantee that they won't return in the future. We have to relay this information back as soon as possible, so that the academy can be prepared for a response. Nankyukai asked, Then what about the matter that eldest senior brother entrusted to us? Are we not going? Of course, that still has to be done. Huoyuan said exasperatedly. That's the reason why we have to split up. I'll write a letter, and you'll deliver it to eldest senior brother so that he can pass it to eldest son personally. I will complete the task that eldest senior brother has given us. Nankukai's eyebrows rose as she retorted, Humph, I knew it. You just aren't willing to do anything with me, and you're always looking for ways to chase me away. Huoyuan forced a laugh and said, Shit, isn't this happening because the plans can't keep up with what's happening? This matter is too important. Furthermore, I'll use a container to store a piece of divine ice crystal, and you'll bring it back to Teacher Sun so that he can inspect it and decide whether it's suitable for crafting soul tools, and what kinds of soul tools the crystal is appropriate for. There's something in it for you too. There was quite a large amount of the crystal, and everything came from the Earth Dragon sect. Nankyukai would definitely get a piece of whatever soul tool they could craft out of it. Of course, those divine ice crystals wouldn't have their ice spirits. That wasn't because Huoyuan was stingy, but because those without ultimate ice martial souls couldn't use ice spirits at all. Divine ice crystals without ice spirits were just top-tier rare metals, and soul tools could still be made from them through certain methods. Nankyukai's expression became a little better after she heard his words. I'll follow you this time, then. But remember, you owe me. What do I owe you? Huoyuan asked. Nankyukai grunted and said, I don't care. You just owe me. All right. Huoyuan wrote the letter before he passed a piece of divine ice crystal to Nankyukai so that she could take them back. He didn't give her all of it because it wasn't safe, and she would be holding too many precious items with her. Huoyuan escorted Nankyukai out of Dragon City to express how apologetic he was. He watched her depart before he turned around and went deep into the Heavenly Soul Empire with the Ice Bear King, in the direction of the Setting Sun Forest. The Setting Sun Forest wasn't far from the Heavenly Soul Empire's capital, Heaven Do City. Huoyuan couldn't help but heave a sigh inside when he thought about Heaven Do City, because that was where the Tang sect had originated. But now, the city was in the Sun Moon Empire's hands, and he had to help the Heavenly Soul Empire retake this city in the future, if that was possible. Huoyuan had already decided how he was going to proceed. He had to visit the Setting Sun Forest to check if Big Mao and Second Mao were all right, and if they were fine, then all was well. Then he would have to scout around the Heavenly Soul Empire's territories. He was by himself, and it was thus a lot easier for him to conduct reconnaissance duties of any kind. He wanted to see the Sun Moon Empire's deployments, and he also wanted to find out how many of the Holy Ghost Church's men were inside the Heavenly Soul Empire. He also wanted to search for traces of Tangya and Ma Xiaodao. This process would probably take quite a long time, and that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to take Nankyukai along. It was a lot easier for him to escape alone, but things would be different if Nankyukai was with him. Huoyuan relied on his powerful spiritual detection as he flew through the air. Even though he ran into some of the Sun Moon Empire's aerial surveillance soul tools, he managed to evade them cleverly. Huoyuan was concerned about the Ice Bear King's injuries, so he deliberately controlled his flying speed. They arrived outside Heaven Do City after 2 days. Heaven Do City's defenses were a lot tighter compared to Dragon City. Huoyuan could see from far away that there were many aerial surveillance soul tools above the city. The Sun Moon Empire's flag swayed in the wind on the city wall, and there were many soldiers patrolling and standing guard. He couldn't see what was happening inside the city clearly, but he didn't dare to go any closer from the air. Hero Yuao stared at Heaven Do City, and he thought that the Sun Moon Empire had to have many soldiers stationed inside. Judging from the situation, Heaven Do City was the Heavenly Soul Empire's capital city, and it was one of the most renowned and ancient cities on the continent. The Heavenly Soul Empire must have launched continuous assaults or ambushes from their forces in the shadows, and that was probably the reason why the defenses around Heaven Do City were so tight. If those reclusive sects were the ones making moves, Heaven Do City was evidently their best target. There have to be powerful soul masters here, since there are so many soldiers standing guard. The Holy Ghost Church probably has men here too, and I'll take a look once I'm back from the Setting Sun Forest. Hero Yuao turned around and went straight for the Setting Sun Forest. He couldn't help but wonder how Princess Wei Na and the others from the body sect were doing as he flew. The last time they had met at Radiant City, they were still so powerful, but they were now citizens who had lost their country. The Setting Sun Forest was very close to Heaven Do City, and Hero Yuao could soon see the dense forest from a distance. There were faint flickers of brilliant colors deep in the forest. Of course, those were fatal. Be careful, little Bai. This forest has a very toxic miasma inside. Hero Yuao warned the Ice Bear King beside him. The Ice Bear King chuckled and said, "Rest assured, grandfather, poison is what I'm least afraid of. Besides poisons like that belonging to the Ice Empress, the soul beasts of the extreme north rely on our extremely low temperatures to resist most kinds of strong poisons. It's all good. Let's go." That's true. My ultimate ice isn't afraid of poison, and the Ice Bear King is much stronger than I am. The Snow Empress has truly found a good helper for me, and everything is a lot safer with this fellow around. This was the reason why Hero Yuao felt confident investigating Heaven Do City earlier today. Hero Yuao took the Ice Bear King into the Setting Sun Forest, and he went down the same familiar path as the Ice Bear King followed beside him. Hero Yuao was very different from when he first came here back then. He was still extremely weak back then, and he didn't understand anything about what was happening here. Now, he was a formidable soul sage who was almost a soul duo. His soul power had been increasing rapidly, or even exponentially, after continuously absorbing the manifold mysterious ice essence every day over the past few days. Hero Yuao could even feel that he was close to that bottleneck, and that discovery actually surprised him. Hero Yuao's soul power was only at rank 74 when he left Shrek City. A little more than a month had gone by, but he could already feel that he was pushing towards the next bottleneck. That cultivation speed was simply too quick. Of course, one of the most important reasons was that he had absorbed the manifold mysterious ice essence, and the Snow Empress was there to guide him. In addition to him forming his soul core, his soul power cultivation speed was greatly increased. His soul core continuously helped him increase his soul power even when he was not cultivating. The Ice Fire Yin Yang well quickly came into view. Hero Yuao unleashed his snowy dance of ultimate ice to expel the miasma as he took Little Bai into the valley. A man and a bear descended from the sky right into the valley. However, Hero Yuao was immediately taken aback when they entered the valley. The Ice Fire Yin Yang well was still a paradise on Earth the last time he was here, but many things were different now. There were many different plants growing densely inside the valley around the Ice Fire Yin Yang well, but everything clearly looked a lot more chaotic. Many plants on the periphery had disappeared, and some areas even revealed empty earth. Only the immortal herbs and plants in the inner circles appeared as they were. Furthermore, such a place that was filled with life did seem a little disarrayed. Some of the immortal herbs in the inner circle seemed like they had shifted around. What happened? Did someone come inside? Hero Yuao continued to think as he walked towards the Ice Fire Yin Yang well. You're here. He wasn't even near the Ice Fire Yin Yang well when a crying voice rang out. The Ice Bear King was startled as he turned around vigilantly. He could see a large pinkish flower that was swaying its head around, and it was clearly emanating grievous emotions. How are you? You. The large pinkish flower was the delicate Silk Immortal, and Hero Yuao hurriedly greeted her. The delicate Silk Immortal was clearly full of resentment. No, I'm not good at all. Ever since you guys sent in those two bastards, our plants haven't been well. Hero Yuao was momentarily stunned. Only then did he realize that the mess around the Ice Fire Yin Yang well was related to Big Mao and Second Mao. What's wrong? You. Have Big Mao and Second Mao caused you trouble? Hero Yuao asked a little anxiously. They have caused more than trouble. The delicate Silk Immortal answered sorrowfully. If not for the fact that some of us still have some strength, we would probably have become meals in their bellies. They're not bears, they're two pigs. Look at the outer layers. Originally, there were all kinds of herbs and plants that were thousands of years old, but they have eaten them all. They are also very cunning, and have considered eating us more than once. We didn't dare to kill them because of you. The home that we have relied on for subsistence has become so tattered. If you didn't come, we might have risked everything we have to deal with them, and that's because they have become far too powerful. If we don't deal with them soon, they might just eat every single one of us. Hero Yuao didn't expect Big Mao and Second Mao to cause so much trouble. He hurriedly apologized. Sorry, I didn't know they would be like that. I'm here to take them away this time. Don't you worry. You heaved a sigh of relief, and many immortal herbs and plants released similar emotions around them. They had to be wary of those two fellows eating them every day, and living a life like that was truly difficult. Hey, this place seems very fun. That water is interesting. The Ice Bear King didn't pay attention to Hero Yuao and Yu Yu's conversation. Instead, his attention was focused on the extreme chill ice spring. He exclaimed happily as he spoke, and he strode towards it. Hero Yuao was caught off guard as Little Bai leapt into the air and went right down towards the extreme chill ice spring. The delicate Silk Immortal's voice rose, and it was clearly a little stunned. Is this human retarded? Why is he jumping straight into the ice spring? Is your friend committing suicide? Hero Yuao, don't worry about him. He'll be fine. Hero Yuao said a little exasperatedly. Kaplunk. The Ice Bear King plopped right into the extreme chill ice spring, and quickly disappeared into the water. You, where are Big Mao and Second Mao? Let me take them away. Hero Yuao asked the delicate Silk Immortal. The delicate Silk Immortal's enormous flower head gestured to one side and said, they're over there. Those two fellows are either eating or sleeping to digest some herbs. They are fast asleep. Their digestive abilities are too strong. They eat every day and digest every day, and they absorb everything especially quickly. Go take a look. Take them away as fast you can. We can't stand them for a minute longer. All right. Calm down. I'll just take them away. Hero Yuao felt very guilty that Big Mao and Second Mao had caused so much harm to them. This place was a place that the Tang Sect's ancestor, Chang San, had been to before. After all, he couldn't just let this place be ruined. He swiftly went in the direction that Yu had pointed out, and the herbs and plants opened a path for him as they let him walk as he liked. Big Mao and Second Mao were lying down in the outer layer. There were quite a few plants and herbs beside them, and there was even some residue around the corners of Big Mao's mouth. Criminals wouldn't want to be caught, but these two fellows didn't care at all. However, Hero Yuao was astonished when he saw them. These two fellows were changing far too quickly. The Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear's appetite was incredible, and Hero Yuao had already known that when they were still in the Tang Sect, the food that they had to gather to feed them was equivalent to the volume that everyone in the Tang Sect ate every day. However, they were less than 3 meters tall when they left the Tang Sect. Less than a year had gone by, but Big Mao and Second Mao were at least 7 meters tall now. Even though they were still quite a distance away from becoming fully grown Dark Golden Terraclaw Bears, their growth was just too quick. Their current size and build meant they were at least Dark Golden Terraclaw Bears with 1,000 years of cultivation. A Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear's strength couldn't be measured by the number of cultivating years that normal soul beasts were measured by. 1,000-year Dark Golden Terraclaw Bears were feared by even 10,000-year soul beasts. Just like the first Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear that Hero Yuao had encountered back then. Seems like they've been causing too much destruction, but they're growing very quickly. Hero Yuao didn't know that back when Bei Bei sent Big Mao and Second Mao into this place, Yu and the other immortal herbs had allowed them to stay because of Hero Yuao. That was because the valley where the Ice Fire Yin Yang well was located was very large, and all sorts of herbs such as ginseng and wanqi could be seen everywhere. They were all very nutritious and beneficial herbs. From the immortal herbs' perspective, those two bears could eat for a few hundred years, and they still wouldn't finish eating those things. But what they didn't know was that the Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear's appetite couldn't be judged from their size. They possessed far stronger digestive abilities than normal living beings, and they had eaten non-stop ever since they had arrived. They were still eating normal food back at the Tang Sect, and they digested normal food normally. Even though they still ate a lot back then, their appetite wasn't that outrageous. But ever since they arrived, the herbs and plants in this place were considered rare and exotic herbs, and every single species took their form from condensing large amounts of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The Dark Golden Terraclaw Bears were very good at absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Big Mao and Second Mao would eat gluttonously every day. Then they would sleep and digest everything as they slept before eating gluttonously again. Humans would have exploded from the large amounts of nutrients if they ate so many herbs every day. However, the Dark Golden Terraclaw Bears were enormous and had a frightening capacity to absorb all the vital energies of heaven and earth into their bodies. They ate quickly, easily, and digested quickly as well. This was the reason why Huo Yua came across such a site. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.